what did letting go actually look like in those early days? If you chose one of those business areas where you did leverage somebody, what did it look like to figure out who to bring in, what to bring in, how to task them, how to oversee them? What did that look like?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, this is actually fun to talk about, knowing, what drives your message and your listeners and what they strive to understand. I think for years I treated delegation as like handing off tasks that I didn't want to do. Right. And the breakthrough for me was realizing that delegation is about transferring ownership. So, for example, when we brought the creative director on, when I gave him real ownership of creative and production, and then I brought our head of client success and strategy on and gave him the real ownership of client success, it didn't just free up my time, right? Like I was kind of referencing to earlier, the realness of it is actually what got better.
Hmm.
Things that would have, I would have done 90% myself were now being done 100% by people who own those areas and own that work. And I think there's a difference between delegating tasks and delegating outcomes, right? Or outputs. And so when you give someone the ability to own something, it can be nerve wracking. It can be, it can cause anxiety because as most entrepreneurs know, if I want something done, I just get it done myself, right? And I just get it done and move on. And that felt impossible to me for that initial phase because of my personality. I think the Colby profile, I had a 7 for fact finding, which means my instinct is to dig deep and be very specific and specify things and research every angle before moving forward. So delegation, literally,
It's
it felt
tough.
physically uncomfortable. I could feel it in my gut at times because it meant I had to release control of the details or over control over the details. I think the strength finders maximizer strength like made that even worse. I saw and I knew what excellent looked like, and I didn't really maybe trust anyone else to be able to hit that bar.
Hmm.
So, what changed was getting, that feedback and that data on my own wiring and the way that I thought and operated, and accepting the fact that my job wasn't to just do the work in an excellent way. It was to build a team that could. I think that, the end goal for me, if we can get this thing to continue to grow as we have for the last few years, fortunately for us, is this thing's going to be its own living, breathing organism that I'm not going to have to, plug into the wall to get going every morning, or I'm not going to have a, weekly or a monthly hoorah type meeting and all of that. It's going to have a lot of the inner workings, the processes, the forms of delegation, when, where, all of those details, and have people here owning those processes from start to finish. So it was at first very, very nerve wracking, very uneasy feeling. But had I not gone through that and tried to maybe work through how I felt uncomfortable about stuff, we certainly wouldn't be where we are today. There's a phrase out there, and I'm not good at memorizing quotes and stuff, but there's something out there that is specific to, when you're uncomfortable, you're growing, right? And when you're not uncomfortable, that's when you start to become complacent. That was really driving those moments of that gut feeling like, oh my gosh, if I do this, what's going to happen? How well is the client going to receive it? Or are we going to get it done on time? And I'm just like, roll the dice. Like there's risk in business. There's risk in what we do on a day-to-day basis. But I feel if you're calculated with it, again, given some of my personality traits and you communicate well. The communication is a big part of maybe alleviating some of that uncomfortability with delegating things, whether that communication is in written form or verbal or in person or virtual. Our
Hmm.
industry is super collaborative. We do better when we're all together in person. So I'd really tried to make it a point as we had staff that were some remote, some hybrid, some in office, to really make it a point to bring everybody together in person and communicate my vision and communicate how I was planning to make change so that everybody knew it was coming. It wasn't just they came in on a Monday and now there's a new
Right.
guy and he's running the show and he's responsible for these things. So certainly levels of uncomfortability, but was able to work through that. And now delegation feels a lot more natural. It feels a lot more familiar. And through my ability to do it, it's been seen by the staff, and the staff is also doing it in certain ways as we continue to grow our team.
As the agency involved and you had this delegation and you also, had a very data driven backbone because, I've heard that from you. You had your retention rate, things like that. We often need to build systems and accountability in place for that delegation, for that data, without killing the creativity that made the agency successful in the first place. So, how did you build out systems and accountability while preserving the creativity?
So, as you said before, change is hard, right? And most people, I think that as we're wired as humans, when something changes, we always go like, oh no, and we kind of go on the negative side of things. We don't like change, right? Change was a big part of it. And it was kind of through that communication that I had to say to everyone, hey guys, we're going to change some things. And it's not because things are broken. It's not because, we missed a deadline or this creative piece didn't hit what we wanted it to hit, or we've got clients that are upset with us or vendors busting down our door because they're not getting paid. Like none of that stuff was the reason for the change. The change needed to happen with the future state in mind. And as I communicated what that future state, was in my mind, I also gave the team their own input and their own time to be able to collectively share and offer even ideas and thoughts about what the future state looked like to get buy-in, right?